Hey guys, Darren here, and I want to go over for you the AF100, or the 101 or 102 if you're not in North America. So this is the first real camera on the market to really give us a DSLR size sensor in a video body. Now the first thing I'd like to mention is a lot more people complaining. Like even a friend of mine, when I told him that the Micro Four Thirds is exactly half the size of the 5D, he's like, why'd they do that? Why didn't they put a full frame in there? I had to sigh, shrug my head, face palm, and do all that because I'm like, why do you need full frame? Why? The Micro Four Thirds is just a tiny bit smaller than what the 7D is, and just a tiny bit smaller than Super 35 equivalent film size. So, I mean, you can literally, the benefit of Micro Four Thirds is you can use practically any lens ever made for Micro Four Thirds and up on this thing with any sort of just basic mechanical mount adapter. This is a Nikon adapter. I got a mount adapter for Canon FD lenses, EOS, anything you want. So it's an extremely versatile mount. As you can see, they give you a huge amount of space to actually mount any giant lens you might want. So I call complete BS on needing a Vista vision size and all that junk. But let's get into the meat of it. So the other thing people are saying is that but it costs $5,000, but the 5D is only $2,500, or the GH2, which is the same sensor, is whatever, it's like $1,000 or something like that. I'm like, well, it's a real video camera. Seriously, it's not a DSLR. I mean, I love the 5D that you're seeing me on right now, and they're two entirely different cameras. I use them for entirely different shoots. But when I want to go and shoot, say, a feature or something like that, I want this camera. And here's why. Let's bridge that gap actually. If say your camera DSLR is worth $1,000 and this is $5,000, so we got to bridge a $4,000 gap. I think we can easily do that. Let's start with right here. This little dial. They didn't give you one or two, they gave you 3 ND filters built in. Now, I know that some of you are saying, well, I got variable NDs. Okay, well, those cost what, around $200 per filter? And to make it so it's easier for yourself, you got to get at least one per lens, well, not at least, but one per lens, so you don't have to always change it and always clean it and have something that's almost as hassle-free as this. So say you've got 5 lenses. That's $1,000. Okay, we're well on our way. Next up, the viewfinder, the LCD here. It's a good LCD. It's not meant for DSLRs, it's meant for video. On top of that, it's got video peaking, it's got zebras, it's got a waveform. So let's say you want to add that to your DSLR. Say your DSLR happens to have a clean output that can stay in full resolution while recording. You'd spend at least $1,500 on a professional monitor to plug into that. Okay, we're up to $2,500 now extra, so that's $3,500. We only need to make up another $1,500 for this to be worth it. Well, let's see what else we can find. Let's see. Xlr Inputs built in. Okay, some of you are saying, well, my zoom only costs, $2 or $250, whatever it is. Okay, you've got to get a mount to actually get that mounted on your system. You got to get cables. You got to make sure it's battery powered. You got to make sure all these things are set for it, and you got to monitor the audio on that. Let's assume that you are shooting, monitoring audio on board. Typically, you're not having a separate audio guy do it, so you are doing it all yourself. Would you say that having it built into this is worth twice as much as having it externally? I would say at least that. So that's another $500-ish of value plugged into this. And then, let's see. Over here, we've got 2 SD card slots. 2, meaning you could switch off and record for as long as your heart desires. If have this plugged into AC power. So right there, I know some DSLRs have 2 slots. But first of all, those are closer to the price range of this camera. Second of all, they're still limited in time recording. So there is no time limit recording on this. What's that worth to you? What's it worth to you to have an actual viewfinder? Honestly, I never really use this thing, but still, it's there because it's a professional camera body. So right there, we're already getting well within this camera's price range just the extra features that are built into it. And yes, I know you can say that you want to have, the option to add the things as you want, but a lot of us want to just have it all properly where it is, in the camera itself. So, I mean, shooting with this is just so much more of a joy than shooting with a DSLR. Like I said, like the last event I just did, I only brought the 5D, and it's great. And the event before that, I just brought my EX1 and the 5D. This I like to use more for narrative stuff, like, indie films. It still works great for other things like documentaries, events, and like that. But since I have the options of other cameras, I get to pick and choose which one I feel is best for the situation. And this I feel is great for doing a lot of narrative filmmaking. If it's like an event where you have to run around and change, focal lengths really quick, I like to have the EX1 because everything's built in. The lens is, got zoom rocker and all that, but that's the thing, is they're entirely different cameras. But yeah, it's just a fantastic, fantastic camera. The resolution of it is full HD, 1920 by 1080. Now, to tell you, it's only rated of actual, how many lines it can actually resolve. Panasonic, I think, said something like 700. People claim anywhere from 600 to 800. So you're not getting something as sharp as some other cameras. Like I know the EX1 it resolves much closer to 1080 lines, but still, it is quite sharp. It is good looking. You actually get to record full slow motion, 60 frames a second in full HD. You don't just step down to 720. Cool feature. I actually never really used slow motion much before, and when I went and did my little Death of a Snowflake test video with this, I loved it. That was fun as heck, so I like that. It is kind of an ugly Betty thing, but I like it. It's a box, but I'm fine with that. It works for me. I actually come from a Sony background. I first got myself a Z1U, then an EX1, then a 5D, then this. So, I mean, but honestly, just spend a little time with the camera, you'll get to learn it. If you're coming from an HVX or DVX, you're right at home. I know some people were upset they got rid of the scene file dial, but little noises like that don't bother me too much. As you'll see, you can actually just take off the side handle and this top handle, which is really cool. But because they did that, they made the two start-stop buttons for recording here and here, which is just not cool. And so if you're holding the handle, you don't have that record button up near the handle. So you might notice I added one. So, just hacking apart a headset cable, plugging it into the SS port for start-stop, getting a momentary switch, an L bracket, and hey, perfect for me. So that works on that level for me. Now, one of the main competitors for this is the FS100 because it's right in the same price range. The FS100 has a little better resolution, a little better low light ability, but honestly, those don't matter to me that much because it's a little bit of a difference. And please just get yourself an extra light, or your first light, just have a light. Like whether it's an onboard one or some external lights, you shouldn't just have no lights because a camera can expose with no lights, but you want design lighting, so please get a light for me. For yourself, for me. Yeah, and a little less resolution, okay, fine, I'll add a little bit extra sharpening in post. I'm fine with that. So the big problem with the FS100 for me and a lot of people is the lack of the NDs and the lack of the SDI. So that's just how that is. Other than that, oh, sorry for the cut. The 5D stopped recording for some reason. I don't know. I wasn't looking at it, so I couldn't say. But anyway, so I wanted to also talk about the codec, which is another bit of BS people were complaining about. Is that when they first heard it was a 21 megabit MPEG for, AVC HD, everyone was like, that's terrible. It's going to be crap. And like, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, calm down. Let me explain something to you. EX1, EX3, 35 megabit MPEG 2. A format that people say is great, solid. If you do some research, you'll find that MPEG 4 is roughly speaking about twice as efficient as MPEG 2. So, before you go and say 21 is too bad, first double it and then talk about it. So I would easily compare this to the Sony EX's 35 megabit and say that it's possibly even a little bit better, not leaps and bounds better, but plenty solid. And so once people actually got to shooting with it and they saw how it looked, that notion went away that 21 megabits is not enough. So it is a solid codec. It's hard to break it. People have done some serious tests and it is breakable, but in only the extreme of circumstances. And even if it's not good enough for you, you have that flexibility of the SDI out. And again, it's only 8-bit out, but 8-bit is fine. Trust me, 10-bit you would probably have a much more expensive camera. So don't worry that's not 10-bit. 8-bit is good. You've seen 8-bit everywhere and it is good enough. You're not shooting a giant effects movie. And if you are, I would hope you have a bigger budget for something more higher end than this. But for the medium end, this is awesome. I love it. It's nice that they also made it so that the batteries are retroactive with the previous generation. They made a new generation of batteries for this, but it's completely interchangeable with the other batteries from, I believe, the HVX and the DVX. So that's cool that they didn't just go and change the batteries on us like that. I won't speak about lenses because we already went over that, but whatever lens you want to put on there, it's cool. say you're using 35mm format lenses, not Super 30, but 35, like you put on the 5D, like the EF lenses from Canon. Yeah, there's a 2x crop factor, but still I like to use on this my 28, so that becomes like a 60-ish millimeter lens, and that looks cool. But keep in mind, any lenses you get that are for like the 7D or for another crop factor lens, this only has a small crop to that, so don't just automatically assume it's a 2x crop. To go for, like, this is a crop sensor lens, so this is a 17 wide to 50, so you don't double this for equivalent. It's only like 0.1 or 0.2, so it's still really wide. Like 17 is plenty wide for me. Another friend of mine, Oliver, has the Tokina 11-16, and that's a favorite lens on this for really wide. So I mean, you can get plenty wide on this. Anyone who tells you can't, they're just full of gas, so don't pay attention to that. Like I said, the Tokina 11-16 is a good match for this camera for wide. And I think that pretty much wraps it up. I don't think I missed anything. It's got standard white balance. It even has black balancing. For those of you who like to do that, it is recommended to do that. I'm kind of new to that. I mean, I know about it, but never really had a camera that needed it. So you just hold that in an extra 2 seconds. And it's cool. I also like that you can remove this top handle. They put a bunch of holes up here. You got 2 1/4-inch threads and then I think a 3/8-inch thread. So you can literally just like mount this to whatever you want. Get an L bracket and hang it to the ceiling, whatever you want to do. So it is cool. I like the thought that went into this. Like before they even released it, they brought in a couple guys into their factory and got some opinions to make any final tweaks. So Panasonic was listening, which is really cool of them to do. So yeah, I like it, I use it, and I hope you guys have use for it too if it meets your needs. If it doesn't meet your needs, there's other cameras out there. That's the beauty of this competitive market. We got a bunch of camera manufacturers all competing for our dollar, and it makes them make cameras that we want. So that's great. This is the Panasonic AF100 or AF101 or 102 if you're not in North America. I'm Darren Levine, MediaHell.com. Happy shooting, guys.